Um, I am now excited to get into our last conversation of the day. I will be joined by Jonathan Tijerina from CPS Energy. He's the Senior Director of Business and Economic Development, and Anita Ledbetter, the Executive Director of Build San Antonio Green. Anita and Jonathan, thank you both so much for being here today and for joining us on this panel.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
So we are going to be discussing how we keep communities at the center of innovation and resiliency today. So Jonathan, I wanted to start with you and just ask a question sort of generally about what have you observed over the last year or so around consumer behavior in terms of energy and resiliency? Have you seen changes? I think I've heard about changes, but I'd like to hear what you've been observing.
Sure. Thanks, Aaron, for the question. Again, thank you for having me today, and hello everybody who's on the Zoom call today. So, as the Senior Director of Business and Economic Development, I kind of have an interesting role here at CPS Energy. Not only am I looking at partnering with our partners to grow the city, but there's also this business retention and business development aspect to it. And with that comes a lot of data, a lot of analysts, a lot of different perspective. And I will tell you, no secret, right? The industry as a whole has been going through probably its greatest changes, going back to the creation of the grid. I think what we've seen here over the last 12 to 14 months, rather because of weather or the global pandemic, is you've seen a change in the behavior and kind of the understanding of just how this business works. No secret, right? You've heard the other panelists mention it as well. Consumer demand is driving, utilities to really think differently about how not only we deliver our product, but how we even just interact with our customers, right? The ability to get access to data is really a big driver there. So we've seen change. We've seen an expectation that we need to evolve. I think between our communication network around the metering information that we can provide our customers to even just having conversations about, planning and building out our products and services suite options, you're seeing all of this change happening, at it, and it's an exciting time, right? To be in the industry when all of this is happening is probably, something that people have wished for in their careers, and I'm glad to see that we're going through it here.
Great, thank you. And Anita, we talked a little bit about this on our prep call, but how can we kind of take those changing consumer demands and like sort of harness how they're changing to start building resilient communities?
Yeah, so I really appreciate a lot of the things that Jonathan shared with us, and I very much agree with him. I think what's interesting is that many of us have spent careers meeting goals, creating goals and meeting those goals in our community. But again, as he mentioned, just the state of the world now, consumer demand is really starting to meet us in the middle, and it's starting to really push things beyond. We've seen such a great uptick in, things like solar and, obviously, all the energy efficiency and renewable energy technology things, but we've also seen an increase in people understanding what resiliency is and what it means and wanting that. So I think that, when we really look at meeting that consumer demand, like kind of from the other side, meeting that consumer demand in the middle with our goals and providing those products and services that people want right here, right now. I think that is kind of the sweet spot. There's a lot of room for innovation, and there's a lot of room for really kind of building out this resiliency piece. I think CPS Energy has said this for a long time. It's about having the right product at the right time at the right price. I think the new thing there is also kind of anticipating customers' needs, and those needs are changing and they're growing. And so I agree with what Jonathan said. I think it's a very exciting time, and I think it's a time of a lot of opportunity, and it's a moving conversation, and it's a moving target.
Jonathan, and you mentioned there being room for innovation. So how do we promote innovation, but at the same time ensure that we're bringing benefits to the community?
Sure. Yeah, great question. So, the the community value part, the value optimization for our community is at the fourfold, right? Being a municipal utility here in San Antonio, that's probably one of our greatest foundational pillars is our relationship with the customer and what we do for them, right? And then when you layer that on with the security, safety, environmental responsibility, and so on, you start thinking about just how do you get to an environment where you can cultivate this innovation so that you can ultimately develop a product that enables our customers to make decisions that ultimately will impact, their bills, but at the same time also impact the interaction with us from the utility perspective. And so what we've done here is, our CEO has made it very clear, right? So just like how everyone in this organization owns the customer relationship, we also own the innovation part of it. And so innovation can be thought of and spurred from any department, any person. But what we did do here about 14 months ago, right when we were going into this pandemic, I guess 16 months ago now, is we actually kicked off a partnership, our strategic partnership with the Epicenter. We were able to structure what we call an innovation council. And it really is kind of like a Shark Tank environment, right? So we have a group of individuals cross sector from the organization that come together once a month that really challenge and just throw ideas onto the table to figure out, is there enough interest or enough information to maybe make a decision about how we move forward with a possible pilot or limited deployment project, or is it something that we should go out and do a global RFP for? And so we've been in function now for about a year, and there's different projects that have worked their way through it, rather from, stuff on the data analytics side that is going to enable us to make some decisions about how we interact with the customer or how we provide them information. There's been partnerships around developing a group around, what solar forecasting could look like from a generation standpoint. Or something just as simple as, hey, are we using the right tools within our own tool belt to be able to in essence offer that new product and service? And really, all of this is really centered around our flexible path concept, right? When we launched that back in 2017, we are all in agreement that we want to get to a place where, it's easier and it's more functional. But there's a lot of debate around just what the velocity is to get there and just the cost, right? Everything has a cost. But what I feel is really great about this, and it's part of our mantra, if you will, is the flexible path is designed to give you flexibility and optionality to figure out what the right path forward is. It's not going all in with one type of a technology or one type of a solution. It's really about getting options to the table and at that point letting the market decide what our consumers want. And so we're very much thinking of that concept because at the end of the day, it's about improving the quality of life in our community, and at the same time ensuring that the utility stays, relevant. Quite honestly, right? We want to make sure that we're being responsive and that we're being effective in the way we engage with our customers.
Great, thank you. And Anita, I think we kind of talked the other day about sort of the evolving meanings of innovation, but also resiliency. And you mentioned that people are sort of starting to understand what resiliency means. What are some facets of resiliency that you think we need to focus on now and in the future that maybe in the past haven't been really included in the conversation?
That's a great question. Thank you, Erin. I mean, I'm going to start out by really pointing out two pieces here. And the first piece is equity, and the second piece is getting climate ready. As I sit here in beautiful downtown San Antonio, we are a very large historic city. We have a ton of new development that's happening right now, but we are an old city, and we have so many parts of our city that have been historically underserved. I think we're the largest historically redlined city in the United States, or we're up there. In the past couple of years, our city first passed the first equity budget, where we're really looking at that spending in terms of infrastructure across our community. Well, as many of you know, what we experienced recently in Texas with the extreme weather, we call it the snowpocalypse, or even with COVID, it really highlighted that inequity. because a lot of it really comes down to, resiliency has a new meaning for people. And that is, if something happens, am I going to be okay? And that's a new moment, and so when you look at some of the extreme weather events that we've had, it is our older buildings, that it is the older areas of town. These are the places that that's where we need to concentrate, and that's what equity really means for me. I was had the honor of serving in our SA Climate Ready plan, where we looked at both mitigation strategies, and for me, the important second piece to that was adaptation. And our SA Climate Ready plan is one of the innovative parts of this plan, is that we were starting to look at the community through an equity lens. And there was a lot of great discussion around what equity means and establishing a definition. I think, again, what happened with the extreme weather that we've experienced here in Texas highlights what equity really means for people. So I would say, equity. That is the new face of resiliency. That's the new place where we need to go. We need to ensure that people are going to be able to, and that's beyond weatherization. We've been doing a fantastic job of weatherization in our community for a very long time. It's beyond that. And then the second piece is, again, just kind of building out a climate ready San Antonio. Now, that's been happening in many aspects from many of our partners, ourselves, CPS, SAW. I mean, it's been happening. We have our plans, but we've really seen the need to accelerate some of these ideas, and also the adoption of it has also increased, because, again, consumer demand now is really reaching out, for that. So, again, equity and climate readiness.
Yeah, and if I could jump in there, Erin,
Yeah.
Anita said a couple of things that just sparked some thoughts. So you're absolutely right. The adaptation part of the climate action adaptation plan is something that, quite honestly, I'm really excited about, because it puts us in a position to start thinking, how do we partner? And I see a kind of some questions here in the chat already. How do we partner with some of these established commercial or industrial partners that have been out there, that, quite honestly, they have been doing some efforts to reduce their carbon emissions and to kind of change their footprint over the last decade or so. But, as we think about resiliency from a community, it's not just about the grid, but it's about all of the partners coming together. So both figuratively and literally, we're interconnected, right? And so we got to figure out, these solutions that help bridge us to a future where we get to a point where, we're able to have these conversations and develop solutions that become long-term solutions. Anita said, great point, right? You talk about, things we've done over the last decade. This community has been actively involved in energy efficiency measures for well over a decade, right? Our Save for Tomorrow energy plan, has been out there, has been at the forefront to incentivize customers to change from an energy efficiency standpoint. But as I kind of referenced earlier, I kind of feel right now in particular, we have a really unique opportunity to start talking about behavioral changes. And to me, behavioral changes then lead to some more systematic changes that will push us towards some more ambitious goals that I'm sure we'll set and we'll go after and challenge. And the analogy that I use is, I have a 7-year-old at home who all of a sudden thinks about leaving the light bulb, leaving the light switch on differently over the last 12 months than he ever did before, and it's kind of the same way people think about recycling, right? 20 years ago, 15 years ago, our kids weren't thinking about recycling, and now it's kind of normal, right? You have your 2 trash cans. You have your 1 trash can for your normal stuff, and then the second one for your recycling measures. So, I think the opportunity to leverage those conversations and to figure out the solutions for it, will not only bring your community along, but are also going to bring your public-private partnerships together, are going to bring your collaboration with your nonprofits. It really just starts opening up the conversation for more stakeholder involvement. And that's pretty fun, because working in a silo won't get you to where we want to go.
Yeah, I actually kind of want to jump in and just kind of add one thing there also. You can tell we're both very passionate about this subject. to Jonathan's point, I mean, our community, we've been working on different aspects of this for a long time. And, you know, Jonathan was talking about behavioral changes and the importance of behavioral changes. I would say that it also helps us change, you know, and the way that we think. You know, we've known my entire career that we have to do something about existing buildings. We've all known that. There have been, you know, rebates, there've been, you know, there's been weatherization, but again, accelerating that in a way that's accessible to people. That is the new frontier. And that's the thing that we, I think now more than ever, are more focused on. You know, building codes, you can argue one way or another, will take care of themselves, right? But it is our existing building stock, especially in our historically underserved communities, our low-income elderly. You know, these are the buildings that maybe can't afford a new AC to get the rebate. You know, these are the people that we're here to serve, and these are the programs that we're going to have to really start rethinking in terms of access. So again, behavior changes. I think it's, you know, that's also for all of us.
Yeah, thank you both. Anita, thanks for bringing up the equity piece. Had a conversation with a utility yesterday who also mentioned equity and kind of what they're actually doing to address some of those concerns. So it's good to really hear people move from talking about it to doing something about it. So thanks for bringing that up. And Jonathan, I think talking about your kid and knowing to turn off the lights and recycle and everything, I think that's something that we talk a lot about at Z Prime, is starting them young, especially when it comes to, you know, electric vehicles, and kids think those kinds of things are cool. And so if they learn about it from a young age, that definitely helps.
I couldn't agree more, Aaron, right? Like it's, those are our future consumers, right?
Mhm.
So they're going to be active participants before we know it. You know, I think of it as, you know, I got 11 more summers before my son is considered an adult and is out and running in this world, right? And so, you know, he's thinking about things differently as well. You know, you ask him what kind of car he wants, and all of a sudden it's a Tesla, right? It's not the, you know, stereotypical Lamborghini or big truck, right? That every 5, 6 year old sees on a television show or in the streets and says, "Oh, I want to do that." Right? He's already thinking about Teslas and how does that impact the house, and how does that plug do this? And so it's going to be different, right? And so we have to be ready for those consumers as they come into the market, because again, you know, like Anita and I have stressed, you know, the consumers will drive the way we respond.
Anita, can you talk a little bit about what Build San Antonio Green is working on with respect to commercial buildings? And I know you've got one big project in San Antonio. I think it's the Credit Human project. And can you just talk a little bit about that, how that relates to this innovation and resiliency, and also the economic development piece of the conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Well, so you know, I have the honor and privilege to serve as the executive director here of our Green Building Program, and we are a nonprofit partnership of the City of San Antonio, Bexar County, and CPS Energy, and we were founded by them to improve the quality of life of the people of our community through our work. So hopefully, you know, that's what drives us, is so everything that we develop is in that spirit. So to date, we've certified about 27, almost 28 million square feet of green buildings here in our community. Now, thank you for bringing up commercial, because historically, the majority of those have been single family new construction buildings, and they're all built above code. And I think they're saving about 20, it's like 320 million pounds of CO2 emissions. It's like taking almost 27,000 cars off the road every year. Now, recently, and today we have 6,100 single family homes under construction in San Antonio right here, right now. We have like 6 multifamily buildings under construction. Most of them are with the San Antonio Housing Authority. So again, low income or elderly projects. But what we are very excited about is kind of the next level of Build San Antonio Green. And it's a program that I wrote in response to our SA Climate Ready plan here in San Antonio, and that is our Climate Ready certification. So Climate Ready certification goes beyond, it's still a green building, right? So still energy, water, site materials, and air quality, but it's moving beyond energy efficiency and water conservation to energy and water security. You know, it's moving beyond a good indoor air quality to air purification, right? It's moving beyond some of the things that we've been doing in the green building program for so many years, and really looking to build or renovate a building to handle our extreme weather events, right? So materials that are more weather resistant, high winds, extreme heat. Now we're thinking about the cold and so on. So our Climate Ready, or the Credit Human building that's sitting outside the Pearl Brewery is currently under our final stages of verification, and hopefully, and I believe it to be true, it will be our first Climate Ready commercial certification here in San Antonio. Now, this building is going to be it's like 56% reduced energy demand to begin with. That's 40% of that is produced by solar. So they have a 1 megawatt PV system on it. But in addition, I'm just going over some of the highlights. The building itself, and we're talking about a 200,000 square foot building, mind you, it uses 97% less portable water from our water system, San Antonio water system, than a similar building of its type. So it has, I think that building will be the most rainwater capture of any building on the San Antonio water system grid, so to speak. And it also, has a lot of other things like, a hybrid geothermal heating and cooling system. And it just goes on. I mean, it's 12 floors, it has, 4 different levels of parking, it has all of the things. But the most important thing is that it's right here, kind of in the gateway to downtown. It's accessible for everyone to come and see that it's possible. The Climate Ready building that Credit Human has built is the building of the future.
Great, thank you for sharing. Sounds like I want to come down to San Antonio and see that building now.
I'm sure they would be happy for everyone to come and see it. Yes.
So we had a question come in from Catherine, and I have to give Catherine a shout out. She's been asking great questions all afternoon. So Jonathan, I think this one is, well, actually it's geared towards both of you, but I'll start with you, Jonathan. So she's asking, what steps are being taken to support talent that is wanting to get away from industries that are historically environmentally dirty, like military or oil and gas construction, but still feel economically supported?
Yeah. So look, jobs and and kind of the human the people element, are big factors in all of this, right? As part of my role, we have a partnership with the San Antonio Economic Development Foundation, and with that comes, SA Works. And really what you're seeing there is a really collaborative effort between a lot of public-private partnerships that are coming together to give individuals opportunities to rather shadow or participate in internships and really figure out what their kind of future may hold for them. Quite honestly, I know it's something that I'm jealous of. I'm the guy that changed his degree like 3 times before he figured out what he wanted to do. Because there just wasn't those type of opportunities for me to go and engage in the workforce to figure out, is this something that I really wanted to do? So, from our perspective, we want to have people interested in the development of the things that we're working in. So selfishly, right, there's there's always going to be an appetite for folks in the energy business and the partners and vendors that support our efforts. Specifically at CPS Energy, we're thinking about, how do we retool, if you will, our employees to be ready for the jobs that are coming in the future. There's going to be a point where we're not going to need as many people running these big box generation units the way we traditionally have. And so we can't just let them, fizzle out, right? We have to find places and opportunities for them to kind of redevelop themselves. And I think, I can't remember what the article was. It might have been a Harvard Business Review that I was reading a while back, and they're saying, folks that are coming into the workforce right now, so the 22 to 25-year-olds will have to retool or retrain themselves somewhere north of 5 to 7 times by the time their career's done. Just because, again, the innovation and the technology that's coming in, it's really changing the way we think about it. So I think from our perspective to to think about how we can incentivize folks, it's really about giving them access, right? It's opening up the opportunity to educate. Again, maybe a different perspective of behavior, but it's about getting people opportunities to witness and really get to feel um, like it's going to have to, how we play into it. And I'm following up. Yeah, I feel like I'm going to have to retool again and again. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Catherine. To be kind of selfish on my side, I feel like I've had to retool myself my whole career here. I came in through the marketing team, and I'm a political science major, right? And so I feel like I've had to retool every time I've switched jobs. And I think the more you're willing to say yes and kind of go into that thought process, then you'll find that there's opportunities for you to kind of learn and grow with it.
Yeah, I would just
Thanks,
add on
Jonathan.
to I would just add on to that. I mean, I think in the same spirit, all of these things, they really begin and end with people, right? And so when we really think about the way that people live in their daily lives and the things that they need, that's where the future is, and those are the things that are going to help people right here, right now. I really appreciate what you said. I'm actually a sociologist, and I specialize in social change, and I learn something every single day. And as I know all of us do, and that's part of I think that passion drives you. So for us, I think we're always also looking out for how we can, again, echoing what you said, provide access, provide education, provide information, and really looking to the future to anticipate those future needs. Again, thinking about people. It all begins and ends with people.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, I've got one last question for you both. If anyone else has questions for them, get them in the chat now. But so you're both San Antonio natives, or practically natives. What role do you think the culture of San Antonio and the community play in innovation and creating that San Antonio city of the future? I think Chelsea talked earlier about how she's such a big fan of San Antonio, and I am too, but I never really would have thought thought I would be if I hadn't gone down there and visited with you all as much as I have. So yeah, it's just really unique culture and community, and I just want to get your thoughts on the role that you feel that plays in building the city of the future. So Anita, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, as you said, I was born and raised here in San Antonio. I was educated here. I raised my family here. My granddaughter is thriving here. And when I was young, I used to think like, oh, San Antonio is kind of lame because we didn't have like all the big bands didn't come through here and so on. And until I became an adult, and then I realized all of the wonderful things that we have going for us here in San Antonio. And I think that, when I mentioned earlier that we have such a large portion of our city is historically underserved, right? And I think that that's actually something that will help us be resilient in the future, because people do know how to conserve and they do know how to partner together, because we've been having to make it for a long time. And I think that I'm very proud to be in a city with a heart, to have the kind of leadership that we have. I think that we have wonderful municipally owned utilities. I think that is a big bonus for us. And I think at the end of the day, we are a very diverse city, and that diversity is our strength. So, today, very proud to be from San Antonio, and I love the people of San Antonio. I think that, we are, we're friendly, we're a big, small city. We talk to each other. We ask a lot of questions and we work together. And again, it is because we are, I mean, our city is over 300 years old. And I think that we have a longevity that really plays, you know, that people are aware of that in San Antonio. I think that San Antonio, at the end of the day, we always believe that we will have a future and that we're going to make it. And that is kind of our backbone.
Yeah, I love that
Great.
answer.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I love that answer. I'm gonna probably steal all of that in the future. Yeah, you know, so I always feel like the prerequisite in San Antonio is the first question you hear is like, hey, what high school did you go to?
I wasn't going to ask you,
That's
Jonathan. I
right.
know.
That's right. And if you can answer that question, that means you're from here. So I can answer that question. So I feel like I'm native enough to be able to do that. And I think Anita's absolutely right. You know, the grit and the kind of work mindset that this community has, you know, we show up. You know, it could be for, you know, something as celebratory as Fiesta or the Spurs, but it's also for that neighbor that needs a lending hand during a fire, or that neighbor that needs a lending hand because they lost somebody in their family. The responsiveness of this community, I don't think could ever be measured to really demonstrate just what it means to be from San Antonio. And you know, my CEO has this, and I'm paraphrasing, but has this concept around we're secretly cool and connected, because that's kind of true, right? It's like we're like the smallest big city in the United States you can think of, but it's all about these connections, right? Because it's so community driven. And I think at the root of it, you know, that culture and that mindset of this community is what is going to push us as we move forward into whatever this next decade looks like. You know, where population is somewhere around 1.4 million. They're saying another million people by 2040. Some projections have even more than that. But but even with all this growth, you still see at the heart of the community, you know, this willingness to be a neighbor. And I think you're absolutely, you know, Anita hit on something about the leadership. You know, the leadership of this community, I think, is what helps enable that. And really, the challenge is going to be for this next generation and future leaders. You know, regardless of where they're at in their age or their, you know, or their career, it's about how do we ensure that we're moving the community collectively, right? Because nobody can be left behind, and we have to
That's right.
ensure that, you know, that the resources are there, that the infrastructure is there, and you know, and quite honestly, you know, it may take some investments, but at the end of the day, I think this community is responsive to figuring out how we continue to make San Antonio what it is, which is, you know, is pretty special, small, big city.
Thank you both for those answers. I definitely see both of those answers come through in your organizations. And so I think that bodes well for the future of the city. We did get one question that I think we've got just enough time for. This question is for Jonathan. There's an upcoming Ready for Work conversation. The retooling comments are real. The answer to this question can be broad, but what is the one or two high priority skills that you see need to be taught for adults in the workforce?
Yeah, great question. So this is
That's a
really
big question.
this is really more of a personal answer, because I will say I'm the oddball in my family that is not in the education field, but my whole family is in education. So this is like the nightly conversations at the dinner table. You know, no secret, we got to help the literacy rate here in San Antonio. You know, that's going to be a big component for our future. When I think about retooling individuals, we got to go back to this mindset around kind of, you know, the analogy I like is, you know, I want to hire a Swiss Army knife. I'm not looking for subject matter experts as much anymore, right? So from my experiences when hiring people, you know, the skill sets that we're seeing that you're going to be that you're going to need to be able to perform is you know, it's really more about uh, like how do I say this correctly? It's almost like I need a different type of mindset, right? Because I may hire you to do A, B, and C now, but this job is going to evolve so much that you got to be with me for the ride. And so I think of more traits than more so than tools. But you know, soft skills is a huge one, right? We got to be able to talk to people. I would argue that the pandemic has made me re-love the idea of using a phone. It's not just everything through a text message or email. We actually have to like call people, which goodness gracious, you have so much more interaction, both personally and professionally, when you actually call people. And then the second thing I would say is this idea around adaptability, right? And that works twofold. Employers are going to have to be adaptable to the workforce, but the workforce is also going to have to figure out what the right adaptability is with the employer. And so those are two things that just really stand out to me right now.
Thank you, Jonathan. Anita, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I hate to keep repeating myself, but I absolutely agree with everything that Jonathan just said and find the same things to be true. And what I would add on to that is, you know, listen, there's a lot of smart people out here in the world, okay? But what makes someone special to me is like, why are you here? You know, that's usually the thing that I am looking for. What is that? That's something special. Is like, why are you here? So when we look at workforce preparedness or preparation or, you know, education, like, you know, in terms of like what skill would, you know, do I think we should add to the curriculum? And I think it's like asking why. You know, asking why you're doing something, and you know, it's what he said, you know, having the ability to adapt, you know, having vision. You know, I think for a long time, you know, people sometimes go on automatic and they're not used to thinking for themselves or thinking ahead or having a vision or having a passion and drive. Because you know what has made all the difference in the world is the right person with a heart being in the right place at the right time is making the world change. So you know, how do you get there? By caring, by being open, by, you know, being humble. Listen, you know, again, there's a lot of smart people out here. We're all the same, man. Ask questions. I don't know everything. So being open to other people, those are the things I think that I would love to see more of in the world. Again, it's not, you know, it's not all comes down to academics. It comes down to these other skills that are, you know, having something a little more caring about the world and other people.
Great. Thank you both. Well, we are just about out of time, unfortunately. I feel like we could keep talking all afternoon, but thank you both for such a good conversation. It's always good to see you. And I will throw things back over to Joyce to close us out for the afternoon.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Thank you so much, Erin. And thank you to Z Prime. We love you guys. So excited to have these conversations, and just, you know, thank you for including us.
Yeah, thank you.